Welcome to The Explainer. Think of this as your personal threat briefing, pulled straight from the latest intelligence from CBRNe World Magazine. We're going to give you the intel you need to stay ahead of the game.
All right, here's how we're going to break this down. First, we'll get some situational awareness on the changing threat landscape. Then, we'll jump into 2 real-world case studies to see what this looks like in the wild. After that, we'll get tactical, stuff you can use on the ground. And we'll wrap it all up with the thing that matters most, leadership.
Okay, first up, let's talk about the current threat landscape, because let me tell you, the game is changing in ways you might not see coming. So here's the big question for you. When you hear CBRN, what comes to mind? Probably explosives, right? Maybe a big chemical spill. But what if the threat is invisible, spreading silently through something as simple as global trade, or even worse, through disinformation campaigns designed purely to create chaos? Are you really prepared for that? Thing is, these threats are global now. An incident can kick off halfway around the world, and suddenly, it's a problem for your community. I've got 2 recent examples from Spain and Indonesia that really drive this home. All right, our first case study, it's about a virus. But hang on, this isn't your typical public health emergency. This bug is actually harmless to people. Its real power? It's been turned into a weapon of disinformation and economic warfare. Yeah, we're talking about African swine fever, or ASF. It's absolutely lethal to pigs. But the real threat here, the weaponized part, is the chaos it creates. See, because it doesn't hurt humans, the official response can be kind of slow. And that gap, that's where disinformation and conspiracy theories just explode, shaking up entire economies without a single shot fired. Okay, now look at this timeline, because this is where it gets really wild. So Spain, right? One of the biggest pork producers in the world. They suddenly get their first ASF outbreak in 30 years. And the twist? When they sequence the virus, it's a super rare variant, a variant that was last seen way back in 2007, thousands of miles away in Georgia. You tell me, what are the odds of that happening naturally? Pretty much 0. This wasn't a random outbreak. It screams hybrid warfare. Okay, so that's a biological agent used for disinformation. Let's switch gears to a radiological threat, one that snuck into the global food supply without anyone noticing. Just look at that number, 875,000. So here's the story. In an industrial park in Indonesia, authorities get a call. Something's wrong. They roll out, and what do they find? Cesium-137. And the radiation levels? They're 875,000 times higher than normal background radiation. Just wow. And here's why that matters to you sitting in your station right now. That contamination didn't stay put in Indonesia. Nope. It got into products, and those products hit the global market. And you know how this massive international contamination was first discovered? With a batch of contaminated frozen shrimp found right here in the US. It just goes to show you, a local radiological incident over there can become your problem over here literally overnight. Okay, so we've seen these complex, invisible threats. The big question is, what do you do about it? When that call drops, how does your team respond? Let's get into some actionable intel. Let's talk about making your decon better. You know it as well as I do. When you're on scene, dressed out in level A, the last thing you need is a complicated procedure. You need simple. You need effective. You need stuff that works under pressure. And that's exactly what the Swedish Defense Research Agency has been digging into. So, they came up with a simple decon playbook, and here are the top 3 takeaways for your SOPs. 1. Keep it simple. Have one solid, generic procedure that covers most chemical threats. 2. Save the big, complicated, resource-heavy stuff for the real bad actors, like nerve agents. And 3, and this one's key, for skin exposure to low volatile chems, your first and best move is to go fast and go dry. Right, so the big takeaway from all their research is this. Don't wait for the decon line to be set up. Don't wait for water. Grabbing an absorbent material and doing a quick, dry decon immediately can be the most effective first step you take. That simple action can literally change the outcome for a victim. All right, so we've talked threats, we've talked tactics, but you know what? The best gear and the slickest protocols in the world don't mean a thing without the right team culture. And that starts with leadership. First thing, checklists. Use them, every time. Even on the call that seems like a total nothing burger. Why? Because it builds discipline. It builds that muscle memory. So when the really bad call comes, the basics are just automatic. Next up, explain the why. When you make a decision on scene, take 2 seconds on the radio, face to face, and tell your people why. Hey, we're backing out because I'm worried about X. That little bit of context builds massive trust and turns your crew into a thinking team, not just a group of people following orders.
This one is absolutely critical. You have to create a space where your newest member, the probie, feels safe to stick their hand up and say, "Hey Cap, I'm not sure about this." You have to protect your question askers. Thank them out loud in front of everyone. That's how you catch a small mistake before it turns into a disaster.
Okay, let's talk after-action reviews. The hot wash back at the station has one job, and one job only: to learn. It is not the time or place for discipline. You have to keep those two things completely separate. If you want people to be honest about what went wrong, they have to know they're not going to get hammered for it right then and there. And that brings us to maybe the most important point of all, the near miss. A suit tears, a meter gives a bad reading, but everybody walks away okay. That's not a screw-up. That is a free lesson from the universe, and you have to treat it that way. It's an incredibly valuable training experience that didn't cost you a thing. So I'll leave you with this final thought. Every department trains for the big incident. That's a given. But is your team ready for the near mess? Because a crew that can learn from its mistakes, that can adapt and get stronger every time something almost goes wrong, that's the team that's ready for anything, whether you can see it coming or not.